into the record two different letters, one from the Heritage Foundation and another one from American Tax Reform, into the record. Without objection, so ordered. For those witnesses who were not here for the first panel, I will repeat what Congressman Fleming, Chairman Fleming said earlier, that your written testimony will appear in full in the hearing record. So I ask that you keep your oral statements to 5 minutes. As outlined in our invitation letter to you and under Committee Rule 4A, our microphones are not automatic, so please press the button when you're ready to begin. I'll also explain how our timing lights work. When you begin to speak, our clerk will start the timer and a green light will appear. After 4 minutes, a yellow light will appear. And at that time, you should begin to conclude your statement. After 5 minutes, the red light will come on, and you may complete your sentence. But at that time, I would ask that you stop. I would now like to welcome today's witness, the Honorable Eddie Baza Calvo, Governor of Guam. Governor?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the subcommittee. Again, my name is Eddie Calvo, Governor of Guam. On behalf of the people of Guam, especially those who found themselves slaves during World War II, I would like to express my support for H.R. 44, also known as the Guam World War II Loyalty Recognition Act. Distinguished members of the House of Representatives, war claims for the people of Guam are long overdue. On December 8, 1941, our island was changed forever. For all of you know, that was the day Japan attacked my home. For nearly 3 years, those in Guam were forced out of their homes, were subjected to slavery, and suffered rapes and beatings. Tragically, many died at the hands of the Japanese Imperial Army. On July 21, 1944, what is now known as Liberation Day, American Marines and soldiers stormed Guam and began a successful campaign to reclaim the island. Every year, the entire island commemorates the bravery of these men, remembers their loved ones who survived our darkest time in history, and prays for those whose lives were stolen by war. Members of Congress, while our survivors are indeed liberated, they are not free from the scars of those atrocities. Everyone who has spent time on Guam has heard a personal account of what our people suffered. In fact, many of our survivors remember this day in 1944. They can still hear and feel the bombs exploding as American forces prepared to storm our beaches. And while dodging bombs, which already seemed humane, it pales in comparison to the stories all Guamanians have heard. Guam suffered like no other place in America. Chamorros were raped, they were beaten, they were made slaves. They were forced to denounce the country they loved and swear allegiance to a country that was literally killing them. All the while, our people remained loyal to the United States. They never lost hope that one day and soon America would return and spare them from the suffering and the pain. These acts were done out of a deep and committed loyalty to the United States. And all throughout the occupation, this loyalty is what gave our people hope. People were certain that the loyalty went both ways. And sometimes this hope is what kept our people alive, knowing that these horrible circumstances were only temporary. In fact, there was a famous song our war survivors sang, and when it was safe, late at night, in the end of every verse, it was, and I quote, "My dear Uncle Sam, won't you please come back to Guam?" The Japanese tried everything to break our resolve. They marched Chamorros to concentration camps. They became increasingly violent. They murdered Chamorros at a more frequent rate, with more mass casualties at a time. But despite their best efforts, many Chamorros survived until they were liberated. And sadly, although they survived the atrocities of war, most of them have been called by God to rest. In a more urgent, and that is why it is more urgent than ever to grant these claims. The time is now, while there are still survivors left. Our people have lived still loyal to the country, despite 67 years without any recognition for their suffering. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable congressional representatives, the United States has an obligation to this. Make no mistake about it. The federal government took on this liability after it signed the Treaty of Peace with Japan in 1951. Our people are not asking for something extraordinary. We're expecting the country we fought for, the country we suffered for, the country we died for, to honor its responsibilities to our elderly. And this is not just a statutory obligation, it is a moral obligation. Passing this legislation into law is a chance to demonstrate the importance of Guam. It is an opportunity to show we truly belong to this country. It is a definitive way to prove the mutual respect that we have for one another. During the war, Chamorro's loyalty to America was unwavering, even in the face of death. All I'm asking for is for America to recognize his loyalty. Thank you for this opportunity, and I express my support for H.R. 44.
Thank you, Governor. The Chair would now like to recognize Mr. Pula for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the Guam World War II Loyalty Recognition Act. It has been nearly 70 years since Imperial Japanese military forces invaded and occupied Guam, subjecting its residents to 33 months of horrific pain and death. Through it all, however, the largely native population, the Chamorro, remained ever loyal to the United States. In a monumental operation, United States Ground Forces surrounded the beaches of Asan and Agat on June 21, 1944. Although our forces experienced fierce battles throughout the Pacific, what they found and learned of Guam's occupation by the Japanese was shocking. Fellow Americans, innocent civilians were subjected to summary executions, beheadings, rape, torture, beatings, forced labor, forced march, and internment. Approximately 1,000 had died due to the brutality of Imperial Japanese occupation. No U.S. state or territory suffered as bitter a fate during World War II as did Guam. Cognizant of the dire straits of the people of Guam, the United States Congress passed the Guam Meritorious Claims Act in November 1945, just after the surrender of Japan. The U.S. government later granted relief to certain residents of other areas occupied by Imperial Japanese military forces. Guam was not included in this subsequent legislation under the mistaken belief that Guam residents had already been compensated. For nearly 30 years, beginning in the 1970s, Guam delegates to Congress introduced legislation regarding war claims. It was not until 2002 that the Guam War Claims Review Commission Act became public law. Congress had instructed the Commission to determine whether there was parity of war claims paid to the residents of Guam under the Guam Meritorious Claims Act as compared with awards made to other similarly affected United States citizens or nationals in territory occupied by the Imperial Japanese military forces during World War II. The Commission met on numerous occasions, held lengthy hearings both in Guam and in Washington, and exhaustively analyzed relevant information and materials before committing its collective judgment to paper in its 2004 report. The Commission carefully stated 32 findings and developed 6 recommendations for the Congress, including $25,000 for eligible survivors of Guam residents who died, $12,000 for personal injury, including rape, malnutrition, forced labor, forced march, and internment to each person who personally suffered any of these harms or to the eligible survivors, and establishment of a trust fund for research, education, and media to memorialize the events of the occupation and the loyalty of the people of Guam. Legislation which drew from the report has passed the House of Representatives on several occasions, beginning with the 109th Congress. However, it has failed to receive the support that would see it through to the enactment that we believe it deserves. As Congress is aware, Guam is vital to the protection of American interests. The United States has plans to move about 8,000 Marines, including their dependents, from Okinawa to Guam. Many hope that the passage of the Guam Loyalty Recognition Act would show goodwill on the part of the federal government and would act as reciprocity for the goodwill and loyalty of the people of Guam have always exhibited and will exhibit by hosting the enlarged military presence. The Obama administration, through the Department of the Interior, strongly supported the enactment of the Guam World War II Loyalty Recognition Act in the 111th Congress, and we continue to offer our strong support for these provisions. The enactment of H.R. 44 would restore the dignity lost during occupation and heal wounds bound in the spirits of those who survived. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. All right. The Chair would now like to recognize Mr. Tamagro. You're recognized for 5 minutes.